Good morning, everybody. Quote is, when I loved myself enough, I began leaving whatever wasn't healthy. This meant people, jobs, my own beliefs and habits, anything that kept me small. My judgment called it disloyal. Now I see it as self-loving. And the name is Kim McMillen that did that quote. So today we want to talk about the boundaries that we seek for ourselves, not outside ourselves, but from within ourselves. Tamara?
I love it. I'm really, really excited to talk about it. And it's so funny because, again, we're just like, hey, what are we going to talk about today? And then it comes up. And as we move into it, Deb can share her little situation, but she shared something with me. And I was like, I feel like we need to talk about setting boundaries for ourselves because we've talked about setting boundaries for other people, but it starts within and it starts with us. And it goes hand in hand with being your own best friend and showing up for yourself and following through with the things that you said that you would do, doing those hell yes things and saying no more and stepping into what feels good and what aligns with who you're working to become. And that all goes with showing up for ourselves and setting boundaries for ourselves.
Yeah. So what Tamara is referring to is just a little while ago, I was doing push-ups and it's one of those things where sometimes when you're working out, you just don't really know what you've done until the next day. And then just lifting my arm above like shoulder like height really is bothering me. And that doesn't really bode well for me because I flip homes. So I was scraping ceilings this morning and I have to mud and there's things that I need to do and I need to get them done, right? So I don't really know exactly I think there's like this thing in me that just like wants to know how long. Like I wish I could just punch it into my brain and be like, how long is this going to take so that I can plan for it? Because it's this thing about certainty that I have of like wanting to control and know everything about it. But the reality is that we don't have that. We don't know. And so my shoulder's bugging me. And it has been for like a week and a half now. And I'm trying to like limit some stuff, but some stuff I feel like maybe I can't, but I need to figure out that place where I set that boundary for myself and not feel guilty because I'm feel like I'm letting someone down if I can't do these things that I could do before. Um, that has more to do with me and how I feel about it than anything else. So, yeah, just finding that place for myself where I can find grace and forgiveness and let my body heal. And I and it's feeling difficult, to be honest.
We have those tendencies where, and I know I struggle with them, that same thing. Like, I need to know what is happening. What is the time frame for this? How long are we working at this? What does it look like? What is, I talk a lot about going with the flow, but I still have those moments where I'm like, this is not okay. I need to know. And really like setting those boundaries are like, okay, is this going to hurt me more if I keep pushing myself? Learning patience, learning to slow down, learning to listen to ourselves, learning to listen to what we need, and then showing up in that space that then serves what we need.
Yeah. Well, and I think there's like that's where a lot of the self doubt or like the word that I'm thinking of, just the stepping into beating yourself up because you set out to do this program, you set out to go to the gym X amount of times a week, and then all of a sudden, and we're just talking fitness here, but this could be for multiple things, and then all of a sudden that can't happen because you've injured yourself. And it makes me wonder, the belief system that's going on underneath that, where you think that because you aren't working out, you are failing. And the reality is, and this is something else we've been talking about with the nutrition and the intuitive eating and that kind of thing, is that regardless of whether you're working out or not, you're moving your body every single day. The amount of calories, like just to sustain you, to just maintain you, I'm just starting to figure out and learn. And I'm like, holy moly, that's a lot of food. And so it's not necessary to feel like you're failing when you can't do a workout if it's going to compromise your body and hurt you further. So, yeah, that's how I
I
feel.
I love that you're talking about food, mostly because I love food, but also because I feel like everybody can relate to that. So we could talk about like food and setting boundaries. So I am choosing to fuel my body with clean, healthy foods. The past 3 weeks, I've really been working on healing my relationship with nutrition, learning to eat intuitively, but also like follow this plan of making sure I'm eating all of the food groups and I'm not depriving and I'm not cutting out. And I'm really learning how good it feels to avoid those junky things and to actually eat whole, healthy food. So if I have decided I'm going to do this for me, it's my job to show up for me and to eat healthy. If I know I'm going to feel like crap eating a pile of cookies, guess whose job it is to follow through with that boundary? To recognize this is not serving me. This does not align with who I am. Yeah, I love cookies, but I don't need to eat 10 of them because I know how that's going to make me feel. If I've just eaten a huge salad and I feel full and I really listen to my body, I don't need to eat those cookies because it's a poor habit that I've created that I just fueled my emotions with. So it's really that same step that we went back to talking about in our last podcast is becoming aware and then choosing to show up in that space completely differently. I'm not saying don't eat cookies. I love cookies. This is why I reference them. But the whole idea is recognizing what you're showing up for yourself, and then just avoiding the triggers, following through with the things that you told yourself that you're going to do, and then doing them because you know it's going to serve you. If you know that eating whatever it is that you think you need to eat is going to make you feel really yucky or really gross, why would you do that to yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, and that comes down to like the addiction part of things, how we get into these habits and we almost create this addiction, especially when it comes to sugar. Sugar is a
Mm-hmm.
huge addiction that our society is battling, So I think that's important to point out, as well as you're talking about cookies. There's nothing wrong with eating a couple cookies. A couple cookies is not going to make you gain a ton of weight or create a bad habit necessarily at all. It's not that. It's the amount and the consumption of the amount. And then why are you eating it? Because I guarantee that you don't need to. You don't need to sit down and eat an entire bag of chips to yourself, a big bag of chips. You might be craving the salt, you might be craving the carbs, whatever it is, but it's more about feeding the addiction. And I'm not sure how many of you will be able to like empathize with this, but this last year, being 2020 and with COVID and everything happening, the weight felt very heavy on this world. And I found that I just kept eating. I wasn't hungry. I would legitimately be sitting there and I'd be so full, but it was like an oral fixation, like just put something in your mouth because like you just need to do this because I said so. And it's like, well,
Mm-hmm.
why? And I never even questioned it.
Yeah.
So I think knowing that that can be a bit of a battle, and we have we have a lot of things that are addictive in the food aisles and that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Making time to fuel your body and put that boundary in place for yourself where you eat, like Tamara was saying, putting the good food in, and we're just talking about nutrition because that's where we're being guided to talk what we feel, how we feel intuitively. Again, like most things, these things can be applied to multiple levels and layers in your life. But nutrition, yeah, feed yourself well. Then you find, like, this is something that I've been experiencing, because same thing, Tamara and I are like, yep, we're committing to this. And it was, it was kind of cheesy. It was like the January thing. And, everyone, we're doing this. Like, I'm going to be 40 in April and I am doing this. This is like, there's no ultimate. This is like an ultimatum to myself of being 40 and being at the best health that I can possibly be in. And it just is amazing that my best friends, Tamara and a couple other girls, we're all on the same path together. We're all walking this hand in hand, essentially. So I'm just figuring out that when I go to eat in the morning, obviously I'm hungry. It's breakfast time. I fuel my body. I work out. I'm good. Like yesterday, I think I had the oatmeal and the chocolate recovery from Beachbody. Filled me up. I didn't eat anything until about 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock came around. And this is how I used to be. I would grab a bag of chips. I would grab something. I'm like, just a little longer. Why? It's lunchtime. Why just a little longer? That doesn't even make sense. Eat lunch. I'm full. 5:30 comes around and I'm starting to get hungry. Again, I would have gone for a snack, thinking I need to make myself last a little longer. But I don't know why I was trying to make myself last longer. I don't know what the ultimate end goal of that was. I really don't. And that's where habits can be so irritating. When you start breaking it down, when you start creating new habits and you're doing something different, you look at the old habit and you're like, why did I even do that? What was the point of that? And you literally cannot find a reason for it.
Right. So I'm on this topic of cookies. So I'm sorry, but not sorry. So just talking about like COVID and like habits that we created, food was one of them for me. So I got into this habit of like always having cookies with my coffee in the morning, even if I hadn't eaten breakfast yet. If I had like one of those tins, I had like 10 different kinds of cookies. Can you guess how many cookies I would have? One of every kind because I had to try them all. So I like have my coffee on like a stack of 10 cookies. And I was like, okay, this is where we are. And then I would go to my mom's and she'd be like, oh, I have cookies for you, because she was supporting my habit of eating cookies with my coffee. And I'd be like, oh, there's like 10 kinds here. So basically all of like anything I gained through COVID was because of all the cookies I ate. But habits, right? So now I'm like, I don't need that, because that doesn't make me feel good. That doesn't serve me. I'll buy like one type of cookies because I still love cookies and I'm still going to eat them. I'm just not going to eat 10 of them with no reason for doing it besides just this habit that I created.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And it's so simple to fall into those habits. So even moving away from food, if some of you are like, cool, I don't really relate to any of this, talk about bedtime habits. Being on your devices till the moment you fall asleep. Set a boundary for yourself. If you're not getting a good night's sleep, make sure you set your timer and you put your devices away a half an hour before you go to bed. Choose something that you know is going to serve you, and then set that boundary, draw that line in the sand, and then show up. Show up for yourself and do that thing that's going to serve you and make you feel better and impact your life in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's interesting because I keep going back to Limitless, reading the book. And in there, Chris Groen talks about how essentially all our belief systems are created before the age of 8. And a lot of our habits and our belief systems stay there. And we're 39, for example, for me, and I'm living this 8-year-old's perspective. Do I really want an 8-year-old manning the ship, throwing temper tantrums when I can't have a cookie? Or like I shouldn't even say can't have a cookie, because I'm choosing to eat healthier and opting out of that? Do I really go to that place to throw that temper tantrum? Like, I don't want that. I don't want that 8-year-old manning this ship. And that's why, we're on this journey to change our habits, change our lifestyles, change our belief systems so that we get to be the very best versions of ourselves. And Tamara's right. Show up for yourself. You created something. Don't sit there and be like, oh, it's too hard. Because guess what? It's going to be hard then. And you can do hard things. I would like to point out. We all get to do hard things and can do hard things. It's part of life.
We are reading, we just finished reading Jen Sincero's new book. Amazing. What is it? Badass Habits.
Yeah.
And she talks about like creating habits, and she has this really cool activity, and I think I'm just gonna use it and pass it on because I want you guys to maybe do this in learning to set boundaries for yourself. But she uses it in talking about habits, is getting a calendar for yourself and getting like pretty stickers or colored pens and setting a goal for yourself. And when you show up, you get to put a sticker on the calendar, you get to mark it with your pretty pen, you get to do whatever to be like, hey, guess what? I showed up today. So if you are struggling with setting boundaries for yourself and you don't know what that looks like, for the next 21 days, choose even one boundary and write it out. And when you show up for yourself, put a sticker on your calendar, color it with a pretty pen, whatever it is, because you're going to look back after doing that and be like, look how many times I showed up for myself. And then maybe on the days you didn't show up for yourself, you can reflect and dig into, is there a limiting belief behind it? Am I telling myself a story? Am I letting that 8-year-old man the ship? Like Deb said, like, what is it? Why didn't you show up that day?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think that sometimes I think we would like to point the finger or say that someone else is, or maybe we just like to think that someone else could be in control of the things that we need to put in place for ourselves to create healthy, successful lives in whatever way, shape, or form that looks. I know that would be easier to point the finger at someone else and say, well, this, you didn't tell me to do this, so that's why I didn't do it. The reality is we are responsible for ourselves. We're responsible for creating our destiny in our world. So we cannot blame anyone else but ourselves if we choose not to show up. And there's a lot of things, small things, big things, that can be put into place to make our lives better for everybody.
Because if we really think about it, if everybody were to just disappear tomorrow, who are we left with? Ourselves, right? We don't get to blame anybody else. We don't get to point the finger at anybody else. Mm-hmm. It's us.
Yeah.
Against the world.
Well, you're your own best friend, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, if you want to lead out with the affirmation.
I would love to. Our affirmation for today is, I honor myself by honoring my boundaries.
Feel that one.